Good evening, Councilwoman Marlene Brisk, members of the clergy, Rabbi J. Moses, Rabbi Avi Gabay, and Pastor David Milroy. Thank you so much for being here this evening. I want to thank our generous sponsors which opened this up to the community so we could all enjoy the wisdom, the experience, and the pride of our speaker tonight, Michael Rapaport. My friends, tonight is about humanity. It is not about who you're going to vote for on November the 5th. It's not about if you're a Democrat, Republican, or Independent. It's about goodness prevailing over evil and light overcoming darkness. Tonight is not just a Jewish event. As the son of a Holocaust survivor, I can tell you that tonight is about one thing and one thing only: standing up for what's right. There is absolutely no justification in the world for the atrocities committed on October the 7th. Tonight we are here to realize that we can fight darkness with acts of goodness and kindness. During the Yom Kippur War, a friend of mine was about to go into combat. He was stationed with 450 paratroopers, and it looked bleak, it looked terrible for the Jewish people. Moshe Dayan, the legendary general, gathered the group around him, and he said, "There is nothing, absolutely nothing, separating the men, the women, and the children except for you." My friends, tonight is our first Ambassadors for Israel event, and I want to let each and every one of you know that there is nothing separating the men and the children and the women of Israel, besides for every single person in this room who will leave tonight inspired to be an ambassador for Israel, inspired to speak out against the double standards held against Israel by the world, and inspired to do acts of goodness and kindness in honor for the immediate release of all of our hostages. Recently, I had to do a wedding in Rome, and Esther and I toured the famous Roman Colosseum, where captives were made to fight against hungry beasts in front of thousands upon thousands of cheering spectators. Around that time, the rabbis in the Talmud, they debated whether Jewish people are allowed to take place in this spectacle. The majority of rabbis said, of course a Jew is forbidden to enter the stadium, because an individual's attendance is tantamount to being an accessory to murder. The Jews' patronage is supporting bloodshed. But there was one lone rabbi called Rabbi Nosson, and he said, not only is it permitted to go to the Colosseum, you should even go on the Sabbath. On the Sabbath? To a Colosseum? Why? Because when they, at the end of the Colosseum of the match, when there are cries for mercy from one moral person, the condemned might have more of a chance to be rescued. So picture the scene. You got this real religious-looking rabbi. He's the only one in the bleachers. He's got his white beard, he has his black hat, and there are throngs of spectators callously carried away with a lust for blood. At the end of the entire match, thumbs are pointing down, condemning this gladiator to death. But there you have one rabbi, Rabbi Nosson, with his thumbs pointing up to the heavens. Might he prevail? Perhaps. But the important thing is that there is a voice of truth in the sea of lies. Michael Rapaport, he is seriously cool. We've hosted many people, Yitzhak Shamir, Alan Dershowitz, you name it. We've had Henry Kissinger, we've had famous people. He is the first person in the history of my life. He walks inside, he says, yo, you a Chabad rabbi, where's the tefillin? So we have Michael Rapaport here tonight. He is a modern-day Rabbi Nosson. He is a fearless gladiator, champion for the hostages, the October the 7th victims, and he's fighting against the double standards, especially in Hollywood, that the world holds Israel to. I want to thank another modern-day Rabbi Nosson, Pam Borovitz. Pam is the reason why we're all here tonight. Pam and Jeff actually landed in Israel on October the 7th, and they couldn't leave the airport because they were told of the atrocities, the wanton killing, the murder of innocent people. And ever since, Pam, alongside Michael, have been fearless gladiators for Israel and for all of humanity. It is my honor, and I know hell is beaming in the heavens above, to introduce Pam Borovitz.
Good evening. I want to thank every single person here in this room, along with our generous sponsors who made this event possible. While Israel is surrounded on all sides, fighting for its survival, Israel needs each and every one of us to be an ambassador. We could not be more pleased to have with us today one of Israel's most influential and fearless advocates, Michael Rapaport. I always knew who Michael was from, of course, the Andy Cohen show on Bravo and his love for the housewives. I loved him in Prison Break and Life with Beth. But it wasn't until after October 7th when I really began to see his videos on Instagram supporting Israel and his very honest and passionate views on what was happening. His constant videos of him screaming the truth of what was happening, not only in Israel, but also what was happening here in America. All the anti-Semitism, all the hate on college campuses, when so many were silent, Michael was not. On my first actual trip to Israel, February 2024, I was elated to look over at the hotel and see this hero of a man, at least in my eyes, while standing there with his beautiful wife. He was so gracious as my friends and I went up to him, told him what an inspiration he was to all of us, thanking him for everything he was doing for Israel, and please do not stop. As soon as I came back from Israel, I knew I wanted Michael to come to Columbus and the incredible impact he would have on our community. I told Rabbi Coleman, we need to bring him here. Right? But Rabbi Coleman said, who's this Rapaport guy? Will he fill the room? I said, yes, I promise he'll fill the room. Are you sure? I said, I promise. And today, we filled the room. Michael, thank you for inspiring millions of people around the world to stand with Israel, even when it takes an enormous amount of courage. You have taught us to be more proud of our Jewish identity more now than ever. Your voice has uplifted us even after the greatest darkness the Jewish people have ever faced since the Holocaust. I know that everyone here today will leave feeling more empowered than ever to stand tall against the darkness we face today and to be the ambassador that Israel is counting on us to be. It is my greatest honor to welcome to the stage the man that does that best, the Jewish rebel of Hollywood, Michael Rapaport.
I'm happy to be here. Can you hear me good?
Yeah.
All right. In the back?
Yeah.
The music will like that. I'm happy to be here. I have to say, and I really appreciate that very generous introduction. I am very happy to be here. You know, it's these events and discussions. They don't make me happy. I have such mixed feelings because I've had the opportunity to meet so many incredible people from the Jewish community, the Chabad community around the country recently, but as impactful, and for me personally, that's probably the one impactful thing is getting to meet everybody. But it just rips, torments, and breaks my heart that this is what has brought me closer to everybody. And it's such a confusing, I'm not crying. I might cry, but I'm not crying yet. But it's just such a confusing, demoralizing, roller coaster. I mean, every single day is like a roller coaster. Every single click on your phone, every time you pick it up, every phone call, every text, every news channel change, everything you read, you don't know what it's going to be. And I never would have imagined, I'm sure, that nobody would have imagined that we'd be 358 days since this horrendous situation took place. I never, ever would have imagined it. But here we are. I'm from New York City. I am born and raised in New York, in Manhattan, two New York parents. My father's from Manhattan. My mother's from Long Island, Lawrence, Long Island, which is a very specific, particular kind of Jewish woman. Very specific. In the best way, but specific. Tough. I grew up in Manhattan on the East Side. I did not deal with a lot of anti-Semitism. My parents were divorced when I was young, very young. Obviously, they're both Jewish. My father was bar mitzvah. My mother, at the time, there was no such thing. Anti-Semitism wasn't a part of my upbringing in New York. It wasn't. And the practice of being Jewish, the religious aspect, it wasn't a big part of our life. It was a single dad in the 70s and the 80s, very much like the movie Kramer versus Kramer. My father was a 6'4" version of the Dustin Hoffman character. But the one thing that was really practiced in my home was we were very clear on being Jewish, very clear on being proud about our Judaism, and very clear on
the kind of Jews that, my father was very clear. My father dealt with anti-Semitism. My father's still alive. He's 91 years old. And it's he's good. You haven't met him. There's no that's part of my comment. That busts his chops. Trust me. He keeps him alive and he busts everybody else's chops. But my dad, you know, he grew up in Manhattan and there was a lot of anti-Semitism. He grew up on the west side of Manhattan and his crew of friends, stickball buddies, basketball buddies, all Jewish kids, would get bullied by a group of Irish kids from, you know, Upper West Side. They would come downtown and they would bully them, they would harass them, they would pick on them, they would torment them, they would, you know, tease them and stuff like that. And one day, this group of Irish kids came to my father and they said to him, "You killed Jesus, you killed Christ." And my father's 10 years old. And he's like, "I didn't do anything." They said, "You killed Jesus, you killed Christ." And my father decided at that moment, he said, "You know what? I'll fight all of you." And he looked around to see the rest of his friends. They were gone. and my father wound up fighting the biggest guy in the group gang. And he fought him to a draw. Is this, are you hearing
Microphone.
Oh, sorry. Let me just put this one down.
Here you go.
That's good, that's good. Okay, thank you. Is that better? So, and my father, you know, this is the only curse I'm going to say, he always talked to me and my brother about not being pussy Jews. That's the only curse I'm going to say. A lot of people curse to me back there. I'm not going to name names or point fingers or anything like that. But that's what he talked to us about. My brother went to Hebrew school, my brother got bar mitzvah. I had really outrageous dreams of playing in the NBA. I thought I needed to practice on Wednesdays and Sundays because that's what you do if you're going to make it to the NBA. Little did I know that my Ashkenazi flat feet and inflammation would keep me so far. When I started acting, I became an actor. You know, my father never liked the stereotypes of Woody Allen and the neurotic Jewish character. I think they're great. It's part of our culture. It's part of who I am. But he just said, don't do that. Don't just do that. So that was always in the back of my head. You know, I went on and had a lot of success as an actor very early. And, you know, to be totally honest, you know, those were the two big things that were put in my head by my father about being Jewish, but they stuck. And, you know, to be even more honest, there wasn't a lot of things that stuck. There was a time when there was no ADD, there was no ADHD, there was just AD me. I was a pain in the tuchus. Good, thank you. And you know, then you know, I grew up, had my kids, social media hit, and you know, I've always talked about being Jewish, always talked about being pridefully Jewish, always was disgusted by anti-Semitism, but again, it wasn't something that I faced growing up. You know, New Yorkers, you know, we break chops, there's jokes, but we're all making jokes. It's called it snapping, but it wasn't anything like to write home about. Everybody, you know, it was more about other things. 2016, in July of 2016, social media had already been kicking. I had already had a presence on social media. And I spent a lot of time on social media talking about sports, talking about popular culture, talking about random, silly things, talking about everything except for anything social, political, certainly nothing anti-Semitic. These kids in Charlottesville, Virginia, on a Friday night, went out with their tiki torches and were screaming and yelling about, "You will not replace us, Jews will not replace us." And that Saturday morning, I was living in Los Angeles, I was walking my dog and I was scrolling and I saw that, and I was incited by that. I was incited by that, it was concerning, And it was scary. You know, I think when I get incited, a lot of it is fear, but, you know, you have to make a decision on how you're going to deal with it. You know, not that getting on social media means anything big, but I got on social media, was sweating, walking my dog, and I said, you know, in a colorful language way, you know, that, you know, if the Jews wanted to replace anybody, it wouldn't be you losers. There are 8 versions on my Instagram, Rabbi. And you know, for some reason, that rant, or whatever you want to call it, you know, a lot of people saw it and talked about it, ba 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 ba. A couple of years, and throughout my social media presence, I've spoken on behalf of anything that without any prompting, any nudging. It's always, I see something, I say something. I see something, I say something. I've spoken out about the tiki torches. I've spoken about politicians on this side, that side, this side, that side, all of them. I've talked about LGBTQ, Black Lives Matter. I've talked about every single thing that I felt needed a voice from me that I had an opinion about. When Kanye West went on his rampage of disgusting anti-Semitism, this is a person who's Michael Jackson level fame. Openly, every single day, doubling down, tripling down, doubling down again, tripling down again, more and more and more, saying the most vile, disgusting, unacceptable things. I went on my social media and I was as aggressive and as adamant to push back about him, because I feel like you need to bully the bullies. I feel like we must stand in the pocket when these anti-Semitic storms, and I say anti-Jewish going forward because it ain't anti-Semitic, it ain't anti-Zionist, it's all about Jews. We could veil it in this Zionist this and the Zionist that and all these code words. It's all about Jews. I was disgusted by that and, you know, went on about that. October 7th hit, and that day I slept late, caught on what was going on East Coast time, went to work that Saturday night, wasn't really as much on my phone as I normally am, seeing what was going on. The next morning, the 8th, I was, you know, the dust was starting to clear, and I was flying back to New York, and I remember when I got back off the plane, I saw there were celebrations in New York. There was a girl in Times Square mocking Jewish people, mocking Israeli people, laughing that they were crying. And then I realized what had happened, and the enormity and the violence of what had happened, and started speaking out, of course. And as the week went along, that first week, we're all in shock. We're all realizing the enormity, the violence of what was going on. But in my head, I did not think we'd be here 358 days later. But that morning of the 8th, even more so in a way than the 7th, and seeing the celebration in New York City where I'm from, that week, seeing the hostage posters in college campuses, seeing the hostage posters in New York City get ripped down, and really getting the reality of what had happened incited me in a way that I had never been incited. And I continued to speak out, continued to speak out, continued to speak out, continued to hope, continued to pray, continued to try to support and understand the enormity of what had happened. About 30-something days later, and probably some of you were there was a rally in Washington, D.C. And I had been asked to speak. And the original list was, I'm not going to name names, that I had heard was going to speak was extremely political, more than it turned out. I mean, it was like the big politicians. No political names. But I was like, I don't know, what am I going to do? I'm not going to talk. This is, who am I? I'm like, what is this? And I decided not to speak, but I went. And as I was there, it wasn't as political as I saw. It wasn't as political as they told me, but when I got there, no one was saying what I felt needed to be said. So I was, in the VIP area, and they were like, "Are you going to speak?" And I was like, "Nah, well, I'm not going to speak. I'm just here. I want to get a soda." And they said, "You sure you don't want to speak?" And I told my wife. They asked me if I speak. She said, "You should speak," because I wasn't hearing what I wanted to hear, which was, there's not going to be a ceasefire until the hostages are given. You have it wrong. And I said this in front of the 500,000 people. I said, the hostages must come home before there's a ceasefire. And I also said that the world will thank us later. The world will thank Israel later.
Amen.
And Baruch Hashem, But I left that DC rally realizing that from my community, from the actors community, there's a pecking order. There's a lot of big people I'm sure they did ask to speak, and none of them showed up. There was no men from the Jewish community, actors, who decided to come there. And I felt really lonely. And I had felt betrayed by a lot of the people in my community, particularly the ones who have led with their Judaism, who have made millions off their Judaism, have been the neurotic, stereotypical funny Jew, which again, I love. It's part of our culture. But when it was time to speak up, 30-something days into it, they didn't show up to just stand in front of, especially the younger people. And a couple of weeks later, my wife and I went to Israel on our first trip. It was the first trip we had ever planned. We had actually had a planned trip to go December 23, and then after October 7th, we said, we're not going. 35 days, and especially after DC, we were like, we're going ASAP. And we wound up going, at the end of November. And it was the first time I had ever been to Israel. And we got there at 5 in the morning and put our stuff down and went directly to Kibbutz Be'eri and saw, smelled, heard everything that you were seeing on TV, but you're inside these humble homes in these kibbutz, and you're going from home to home to home to home. And some are burnt to the ground, some are partially burned. You're walking in these tiny little, very, very, almost startup homes in this beautiful community, family community. And I'm in these rooms, and there's blood on the ceiling, there's blood on the floor. There's not just a bullet hole, there's multiple bullet holes. There's multiple explosions from grenades. And you can smell the fire still in the air. You can smell the death. You can smell the destruction. You can smell the heartbreak. And it was a shocking thing to see, because the only thing that I can compare it to is when you've gone to the Holocaust Museum and they have these mock-ups, these recreations, except for you're really in it. And at the Holocaust Museum, they can't recreate the smell and the sound that you're hearing. And even when I say the sound, I mean the quietness. And that first trip knocked me on my butt. And I went and I met IDF soldiers in between their shifts. I met families of hostages, families of Omir Nutra, who's from New York, who's from Long Island. His parents talk like me. Families of Hirsch, who's obviously, we all know Rachel and John Paul and Goldberg, who speak perfect English from Chicago. I'm meeting families of people that barely speak English. I'm meeting families that speak a little bit of English. And the desperation, the fear, the uncertainty, the heartbreak of all of that, and everything that I saw and everybody that I met on that first trip rocked me to my core. I met a young man who's 22. I have a son who's 22 and 24. His name is Itamar. he was in the shelter fleeing from the Nova Festival with Hirsch, with Omer Shemtov, and he told me his story, and I couldn't believe what he was telling me about that day. You know, those poor kids that even are hopefully still alive, what they went through on that one day was enough to cripple somebody's soul. You know, a lot of people ask me about Hollywood and show business, and I talked to you about the celebrities that didn't show up at the DC rally. And people are fascinated by the celebrities and who's speaking out, who's not speaking out. And, you know, I will say this about them. I won't name names. The ones who are the most disappointing are the ones who have blatantly turned and said things against us. There are a lot of different ways to speak out. There are a lot of different ways to fight. I fight the way I fight. Some of you fight with your wallet. Some of you fight with prayer. Some of you fight with support. You could fight with, you know, just being part of community, being better Jews, leaning more into your Judaism, leaning more into all things Israel, and it doesn't always have to be the way I do it. And some of the celebrities put a lot of money. You don't hear anything about it. Some of them have spoken out. Some of them haven't. But the one thing about the Hollywood community and artists in general is that historically they've all spoken out about everything. Whether it was Marlon Brando in the 60s accepting his Academy Award by letting a Native American go up there, or Jane Fonda talking about women's rights, Sally Fields talking about women's rights, we're talking about Black Lives Matter, talking about black roles in Hollywood, talking about LGBTQ, talking about global warming, talking about the birds, the bees, the pigeons, every single thing under the sun. And sometimes it's great, sometimes they drone on, you're like, get off the stage, but they're not quiet. When January 2023 awards season came around, to see not one person in a time where there's so many YouTube channels, so many cameras, so many podcasts, not one person say one thing, at least about the hostages. Not one quote-unquote feminist say one thing, at least about the female hostages. To see all these people that we've watched year after year drone on about everything under the sun, and bless them for doing it. But to see the Emmys, the Grammys, this show, the awards, the Academy Awards, and not one person said anything. Except for at the Academy Awards, that Jewish director who won an Academy Award for a film about the Holocaust refuted his Judaism in front of the same room of people that said nothing, and those people that said nothing applauded for that. It was embarrassing. For me, it was embarrassing. And, you know, a lot of people ask me about the effects of it on me. That's to be determined. I don't feel the need to give that much time. You know, are you canceled? Are you not canceled? I had a couple of comedy shows. I had a comedy show outside of Dearborn, Michigan, canceled. You know, I had another one in Chicago. It's rescheduled. You know, as far as, you know, where things are with me, I don't feel the need to apologize, explain myself, because I know I haven't done anything wrong. You know, the reality is, I feel like, no one will admit it, but I feel like as an actor in my community, my business, there's a little bit of heat on me, but that will die down, because at the end of this, like I said, the world will thank us later. I know that in my heart, in my soul. And, you know, the thing that I said earlier about the best thing that's come out of this for me personally has been meeting so many incredible people and forming relationships with so many incredible people. And I've needed to form these relationships because there has been some that have gone to waste. You know, and I'm sure everybody's had that in one shape or form. And that's sad, but it is just it is what it is. It's just, I just didn't predict it. I couldn't imagine it. And, you know, but every single day since October 7th, I have spent time learning, reading, listening, asking questions, reading, listening, asking more questions. And I have never felt more clear on my Judaism. I have never felt more clear on my community. I've never felt prouder to be Jewish. I've never felt more connected to my Judaism. I have met a 20-year-old Chabad kid in New York who wrapped tefillin with me for the first time in a way that was meaningful. And, you know, if you grow up in New York, you know, you wrap tefillin on the streets whether you like it or not. You're gonna wrap tefillin whether you like it or not. But this kid who was 20 walked me through it, and I felt for the first time during the wrap that it was for me. And it affected me in a different way. And since then, I have wrapped almost every single day. And I met a Chabad rabbi in Vegas the other day, and he said, "Do you want to rap?" I said, "I already rapped, Rabbi." And he said, "You know, we're addicted to rapping." I said, "Trust me, no." I said, "Me too." Because I love it so much. I love it so much for the peace. I love it so much for the tradition. I love it so much for the prayer, and I love it so much for the quietness of it. Because, you know, like I said, every single day is a roller coaster. You know, as far as where I'm at, you know, I'm so clear on where I stand. I'm so clear, so proud to be Jewish. I'm so clear and proud to be standing with you, to be standing with my people in Israel, to have formed these relationships. And the thing that, you know, I can say is, you know, to the people that are adults, you know, we're good. We're fine. We're going to be good. You know, I think it's important to implore to the younger people to stand proud, to stand loud, and I don't necessarily mean screaming, to stand close to your Judaism, to stand close to your Jewish community, and to arm yourself with the most knowledge and history and facts possible. Because what it means to be Jewish is changing to the world every single day. And people are going to ask you, they're going to sniff it, they're going to want to know what kind of Jew you are, and you want to be able to tell them clearly exactly what kind of Jew you are, which is not a pussy Jew in whatever way that language is for you. You know, it's not about being a tough guy or anything like that. It's just a self-confidence and a clarity, because we're in an insane time. We are in an insane time, you know, so I think it's important for the younger people, you know, the college students, high school students, you know, to stick together and to continue to arm yourself and to be more proud than ever before, to be more prideful than ever before, and to stay close to your Jewish community. You know, anyway, but just the most important thing is that, you know, no matter what's going on, to never, ever, ever forget that we, the Jewish people, are not going anywhere, and Israel is certainly not going anywhere.
Very powerful words, Michael and Pam. Thank you for arranging this, Aryeh. Everybody here tonight. I think you spoke for so many of us in this room. I won't repeat the words that you used, but I've said them many times in my own home, and I think that many of us here echo what you just shared with us. A couple questions that we have that have been sent in ahead of time. And then afterwards, if we have enough time, perhaps we can get some great questions from the audience. Were you afraid that being a public supporter of Israel would hurt your career?
I wasn't afraid. You know, if I had even thought, to be totally honest, I didn't think that it would even be something that people would ask. It never even crossed my mind. It really didn't. It didn't cross my mind, especially because I've spoken on behalf of so many other different things, causes, things that were bothering me, frustrating me. I never, maybe I'm a fool. I think some of us feel like fools in collectively, because who would have thought anti-Semitism would be at an all-time high in 2024 after a massacre like that happened on October 7th. But I've learned that some way, somehow, no matter what, it'll always get blamed on the Jews. That's just the truth. I'm baffled by it all the time. All of a sudden, the leader of Hezbollah is some sort of like, he's rationalized, he's a good leader, he's a this, the Washington Post, this. I'm like, what are you talking about? No, and people didn't bat an eye when Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden were taken out. No one would dare to think that. No one would dare in New York City after 9/11. No one would dare to go to a college campus and put a thing up that says honor the martyrs. No one would dare to do that. But somehow in 2024, somehow when it has to do with Israel and Jewish people, you could wrap your head around it every which way but loose. And so no, I didn't think so. I'm here more. I'm so happy that I have spoken out, and I'm so happy of all the experiences that I have had, and the relationships that I have had, and the tefillin wraps that I have had, and the Shabbat dinners that I have had, and the coffees in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem that I have had, more so than anything about these active people. And again, I'm not going to tell you names, but some of these people, and I have to come to terms with this because I know these people. Just because you could quote Shakespeare, and you're charismatic, and you're soft-spoken, and you're good-looking, and you might have read Dostoevsky, doesn't mean you're smart. That's the reality. There's a lot of intricacies, but at the end of the day, it ain't that complicated how we got here and what has happened and what brought us to October 7th. So these actors and these celebrities, you know, enjoy them if you want to enjoy them as actors and celebrities. They're great at what they do. The majority of them, it's shocking to me. They ain't that smart. It's crazy. And anybody that's siding or rationalizing or excusing or making a but this about terrorists, massacres, rapists, arsonists, thieves, kidnappers, murderers, anybody that's explaining anything that has to do with any of them. This is not a person we need to have a conversation with. Just don't come within arm's distance.
Can we take it to the spiritual side for you? You mentioned to Phil in your experience and your kind of awakening with that, Michael. Can you share with us how that's evolved over time and what that means to you today?
Well, particularly to fill in, it's having an effect on me that I'm concerned about because I feel like it's making me more conscious. And I don't know, it's really it's just a beautiful, you know, we talk about the phones, we're all on our phones, we're all getting our news, there's 50,000 channels, there's 75 billion podcasts, there's fear, there's concern, there's information, there's misinformation. That gesture, that time, that prayer of that I urge all the men to do it. It's just a beautiful, spiritual, it's so Jewish and it's so etched in tradition. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made. I love it. then you go, we know. But I am like, but it just slows things down for me. I'm not as crazy as a rabbi. But it just, I just can't urge it it's just a beautiful thing to film.
Fantastic. What advice would you give someone, particularly the young folks in the audience today, who want to speak out but are potentially afraid to speak out due to professional, social pressure, whatever that might be?
Listen, everybody's got to do what they're comfortable with. Like I said, social media is social media. I do that. That's what I do. You have to protect yourself at work. It's not physically. You got to do what's best for you. But you have to also be prideful and can't back away and be ashamed of who you are, what you are, and of your Judaism. That being said, speaking out, not speaking out. I'm not a rally person. I don't go to rallies. I've been at rallies in Israel, but it's more like because I'm like there, Like you got to do what you're comfortable to do. There's so many quiet things. There's so many things that you could do within yourself, with your wife, with your husband, with your kids. There's so many mitzvahs that you can give in the most basic, simple way. So as far as the broad strokes, if you're down for it, do it. If you ain't down for it, don't do it. If you're on the train and you feel uncomfortable putting your star away, that don't make you a sucker or a punk. Put your star away. Get off the train, put your star out, or don't do it. People have to, it's beyond all that stuff. It's to me, it's the quiet things and the smaller things. But the one thing that I urge, especially the young people, and I am not, I barely graduated high school, is to really arm yourself with information and history of who we are as people, because we're incredible people. I mean, we are an incredible people.
I think the next question has been answered, but if you want to elaborate upon it in terms of any prior October 7th anti-Semitic experiences you might have had in your professional life, or you shared some of your neighborhood experiences, Michael. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, it's never really been a thing. I know it's around, and I know like it was a thing in the past. But I think that's one of the big wake-up calls is that we did think we had moved forward from the anti-Semitism and the anti-Jewishness, and I think that's one of the more shocking parts of what's gone on for everybody. That it would be so celebrated and so excited and so ecstatic about us when we're down. That I didn't think so. And then the conniving, manipulative, lying, and trying to manipulate the truth and trying to manipulate Jewish people into doubting ourselves and to doubting our Judaism and to doubting our Zionism. It's all part of it. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. But I think that's probably the biggest part that I think collectively everybody's like, wow, I didn't know it was coming back like this. It was there. I know it's like this. It's reinvigorated.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's I think it's important to be proud of yourself, to be confident in yourself, to not doubt yourself, to not be Jewish people in general. I think that we are very humble. I think that's great, but you also could be really proud of what we've done. You could be proud of what you've accomplished, and you could be proud of all your success, because 99.9% of us came from nothing, and it's all because of what we've been through.
So this next question, you've touched upon much of this already, but I can tell you from a personal experience, Columbus being a former home that we're very proud of as a family, and then going to New York. Can you reflect upon, with just kind of a caboose to that question, it's very difficult when we come back to Columbus or another city that doesn't have the experience that New York has, kind of as ground zero of all this activity. Can you just take a moment and maybe reflect upon that and maybe some of the experiences you've had trying to explain or trying to lead folks who don't quite have that experience?
In terms of what?
the depth of the anti-Semitism in New York City.
You know, when I walk around, I live on the Upper East Side, and to this day, I am baffled when you see posters of Kafir Bemis. It trips me out. It's crazy. And then they get put up, and then they get graffitied on, and then they get put up, and then they get graffitied on. And to go to 9/11, you know, I was in New York post 9/11, and so many people had, you know, missing people posters all over New York. These things were pristine. You wouldn't think to do that, but only with the Jews. And I know it sounds like crazy, like only with the. I never said that in my life, but it's show and prove. It's insane. So to see that stuff's crazy. To see the college campuses are crazy. It's disgusting. You wouldn't allow that on any college campus if they were talking about someone being short, tall, freckle-faced, redhead, you know, big feet, small feet, let alone black, gay, or anything under the sun. But somehow these animals are allowed to come on college campuses every single day to parade around people. For me as a New Yorker, it's when I went to Columbia last spring, and I'm sitting there on one of the first days of the spring, it's a beautiful day, and I'm on the west side, I'm on 116th Street, and I'm looking over there, and I'm like, this is crazy, this is New York City. This is crazy, because this is not what New York is based on, and it's certainly not what the United States is based on. It's insane. It wouldn't be allowed for a blink for anybody else. Dog lovers, cat lovers, meat eaters, vegan, no one would be allowed if you're saying these people don't belong here. Zionists, all of a sudden it's okay. It's crazy.
Do you have a personal role model in the Jewish community here, abroad, Israel, a spiritual icon that you look to, who's inspired you in your Jewish pride?
Well, certainly my father, but it's not like he's walking around, you know, it's just that my mother, my wife, and to be totally honest, every single one of the people that I mentioned that I've met in Israel, you know, to meet the rabbi, to meet that young kid Yossi that rapped tefillin with me, to see, you know, when I meet people all over the country, in airports, and the prideful Jewish people, the demoralized Jewish people, the crying Jewish people, the suffering Jewish people, you know, there's scholars, a woman named Dr. Einat Wilf, who's clicked my brain to everything about the UN and UNRWA, you know, Dan Senor, Benny Morris. There's a bunch of people that I've read and I listen to, but it's really the people that I've gotten to meet. They give me every day, you know, and every day I think about, you know, when I think about, like, they talk about Israel fatigue and all that stuff, for me, and we were all entitled to take a day off. We're all entitled to watch the game, enjoy the game, and not pick up our phone, and not engage, and not even give it any of your heart and soul, because it is exhausting. 357 days of this is exhausting. But for me, like when I think about those relationships, when I think about the 97 hostages from October 7th, the 101 total, when I think about the young men that I've met from New York, from Long Island, IDF soldiers, lone soldiers who have went there, who you know have been injured, and all that stuff, I'll continue to do my little part, and whatever frustration, whatever shows canceling, it's nothing compared to the people that have lost their families, that don't know where their loved ones are, that, like this kid Itamar, who lived. He's perfectly healthy. The PTSD that this young man, the experience that he told me out of his mouth, it's baffling. And this is one person. It's a horror movie. And if it was in a movie, you'd go, no way. I couldn't believe what he's telling me, to live to tell about it. It's crazy. And those people inspire me to keep going and to keep pushing and to keep fighting. Because it's all hands on deck right now.
This is fantastic. I think you're reflecting what so many of us feel, and wake up with every morning and the managed rage that has brought all of us together.
And we should be rageful. We're allowed to be rageful.
Yeah.
And we don't have to be embarrassed about it.
So on that note, how do we go to the future? What does that look like for American Jews?
You know, I want to say this. There's no bad Jews. My good friend who's on the radio in New York, Sid Rosenberg, who some of you know, some of you don't, you know, he talks about bad Jews, you know, because of the way people are voting or the way they're talking and all that stuff. There's no such thing as a bad Jew. There's uninformed, there could be uneducated, there could be misguided, there could be scared, there could be all these other adjectives and verbs. There's no such thing as a bad Jew. You disagree. I understand. Trust me, I understand. I understand. I've had to force myself to push aside from that. You know, I've made a decision not to disparage any Jewish people publicly, and it's been challenging. Whether it's politicians, whether it's been actors, whether it's been this person or that person, it's been challenging. But I've made a decision not to disparage them because the whole world is disparaging us. So maybe I catch them later. But, and I know that's, I understand why you're saying that. I just don't like to do it publicly, and so much of what I do is public, and speaking, you know, about it publicly. Of course I think these things, and I even try not to think them though. That's why I said like the tefillin is having like this, you know, kind of like hypnotizing effect on me. But I just think it's important to just, any little practice, any little mitzvah you could possibly do is the ultimate thing. And I keep saying it, but to just arm yourself to continue to learn and understand and read and listen to listen to the dummies too. Listen to people. It's almost as important to listen to people you don't agree with, even though it makes you sick regarding this, than it is to people that you do agree with. Because you need to understand the playbook of what these people think. Because we need to take them extremely seriously. Because a lot of times we treat them like the crazy person on the street. Oh, we want to get rid of Israel, from the river to the sea. We want to get rid of all the Jews, all the Zionists. Yeah, okay. They meant it. They showed and proved. And if they weren't stopped on October 7th, we would have every single one of them. And any one of us that would have been there. You know, and we talk about, like, you know, the as a Jew Jews who, well, as a Jew, they explain themselves. I just have to I can't, it ain't easy. I mean, you can go on my Twitter feed, you can see I'm not perfect.
Well, I think it's that candor that makes your comments tonight so meaningful for us. The last of the pre-submitted questions, and then based upon our timetable, there's a couple questions from the audience. Now that it's been a year since October 7th, what's the one message that if you could echo through synagogues and Chabad houses throughout America, what would you say to the Jewish community, and what should we walk away with over this last year?
I mean, the one message that I think is the most important is to never, ever, ever doubt your Judaism, and I said it once because it's something that I think about. I say it to myself all day, every day, is that the Jews are going nowhere and Israel is going nowhere, period.
Thank you. We have time for a couple of questions from the audience.
If anybody's got me.
But my question is, how can so many Jews not be supportive of the people that are for Israel? And the politics is making me crazy. And I don't understand. I had a conversation with a girlfriend who's very religious, and they like the other person, but I don't get it.
Well, the politics, I'll stay away from, because they asked me to stay away from it. The Jews who are not supportive of Israel are, we must, I think, you know, I was talking to a person who runs this polling group, very smart woman, especially if it's Jewish people. Talk to them. there ain't no silver bullet to get to any of this. It just don't exist. To get to the anti-Jewishness, to get to the terrorist supporters, the terrorist cheerleaders. But if it is Jews and you can't talk, have a coffee with them. Ask them questions. And try to, it's almost like getting a New York Yankee fan to lean towards the Red Sox. But if you could just get them going, Reggie Jackson's pretty good, right? Just open their eyes. I think that's the most important thing. Because the social media stuff, I do my thing for us. I do my thing for us. Like, when I'm ranting and raving and going at I know that the majority, well, I get, a lot of hate, but the sentiment is I do it for us. At this point, I know who's watching and who needs it. It's us. The politics, that's a whole other bag of potatoes. Midwest, yes, I said potatoes. Are you in the Midwest?
Thank you so much.
We do have somebody we want to ask to come up, but before I do so, are there any other questions that any of you who might have traveled long and far want to ask Michael? Yeah, on the back.
Yes, Michael, thank you so much for your blessed presentation tonight. We stand with you and we stand behind you. I have a question. As a Christian minister, what are the top 2 things that I could do to support my Jewish brothers and sisters and encourage them to support me?
Rabbi, you might have to answer that. I want to make sure that that's answered correctly. I would just say to keep doing that. I would say to keep the ones in Israel who are suffering in your prayers. And I think the face-to-face conversations are of the utmost importance. If I could say that, I feel almost unqualified to answer your question, but that's what I would say in a doable way.
Thank you.
Hi, by the way, also a New Yorker from Queens, so we have another New York here. I have a question. This is something that I feel like I'm probably not going to be the only one who's struggling with this, but as a parent with a child who's 7 years old, also has autism, at times a little bit nonverbal, who is out in the world and is trying to trying to understand what their Jewish identity means, who's around kids who are of all different cultures. And obviously, I know you mentioned you're a parent yourself. What would you say would be a good advice as far as how do you help that child who's trying to really understand their Jewish identity, especially in this day and age, and get through those challenges, especially when they don't have much of a
I think that being a compassionate, good kid, and him being as unjudgmental of the other people and expecting it to come back, and not accepting as he gets older. He's 7. Anything but that. Parenting, it ain't easy, obviously. But I think it's just, to just teach him everything. You give him the kitchen sink, and, he'll go out in the world. She will take, all the stuff that you give her, and some things will stick, some things won't stick. But at the end of the day, she'll know she's, a proud Jew. And as loving as you could be with her, I'm sure she is with the world, and she should expect nothing else but that back. And it's the only thing she should accept, and the only thing that we should accept.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this great question, Michael. Thank you for the candor. Do we have?
Hey, one more?
Is there one more?
Yes. Yeah.
Please, last
Scream,
one.
yell it.
Michael, I used to watch all your stuff. I remember down your block there would be these people taking stuff out of the CVS near you, and you'd be rallying against it. I wanted to just understand. How you perceive this current situation with
after October and how it might intersect with some of those activities that you were rallying against before.
In regards to what?
In regards to groups like Black Lives Matter.
All right, well, it's specifically, I was talking to somebody earlier, I think, not to make any excuse for these dummies, but these people rallying, protesting, there has to be an agenda other than they care so much. Because no one has the time or is wealthy enough to go to a school every single day, rain, sleet, snow, winter, spring, summer, and fall, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, and do that kind of stuff. And so I think that, people are being, some of these people are being paid to do it. Because, some of them are nuts, and some of them truly believe it. I'll tell you one thing. I'm all over the country lately doing shows, doing comedy. I'm in airports. I walk around New York City. I wear my stars out. Me personally, this is just me, and it might just be luck. Me personally, not in one airport, not on one airplane, not in one face-to-face count have I even gotten a dirty look from anybody. And I haven't seen one of these Halloween costume scarf people in real life. I haven't seen them, and I'm looking. I'm all over the place. I just haven't seen them, and that just might be, the way it's supposed to be for me. But it's like, I don't know. I think that a lot of this is, it seems like, if Israel could eliminate animal terrorists in a 2-week period, that America could at least get rid of these people on these college campuses.
Questions. Thank you again. I want to introduce Sheila Cutler. Please take the stage. I think you have some work to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends and community, it is my great honor to stand before you on behalf of Chabad Columbus. Michael, you're a man we've all come to admire for your authenticity and humor. You have always been unafraid to stand up for what you believe in. On behalf of Columbus and Chabad, we want to thank you for your voice, your strength, and your dedication to our people. You've shown us that faith is not something we carry alone, but something we share with every Jewish soul around the world. It is with immense pride that we present you with this gift, a symbol of our appreciation, our heritage, and the bond that connects us all, no matter where life takes us. May this gift serve as a reminder of your journey back to faith and as a testament to the unbreakable spirit of the Jewish people. Thank you. Thank you, Michael, for being a light to us all.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Quick announcement. It was very meaningful for Sheila to be here today. She's standing in front of the ark in the best, her parents' name, Frank and Boots Nudas, and I know in the heavens above they're proud of you, and they're proud of Ira and Laura and Jody, and then all the mishpacha. Thank you. In Israel, when bombs are exploding, when missiles are being launched, and families are huddled inside bomb shelters, we in Columbus can do something. Every single person in this room is an ambassador for Israel. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is just the beginning, because Pam has got to work And, God willing, on November 19th, Rami, a man who has saved 750 innocent bystanders. He will be coming here on November the 19th. The Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory said that there's a profound lesson we can learn from the launching of a missile. You can literally be on the other side, tens of thousands of miles away. You can press a button, and that is felt literally thousands of miles away as the bomb explodes. If it's that way for negativity, how much more so for positivity? Each and every one of you can do a mitzvah, can do a good deed. We can, as Maimonides says, tip the scales for goodness, for salvation, for blessings, for our families and for the world. You have on your chair a tea light candle. We're talking about tefillin. We're equal opportunity. Ladies, you can light Shabbos candles. Please take them home. Put them to good use. Thank you all for coming. I am so lucky it's before Rosh Hashanah because now I have enough information from Rabbi Michael Rapaport. Rosh Hashanah